Hello again and welcome to part 4 of week 2 for NodeJS course at Hack Your Future. Now in this part I want to talk a bit again about the HTTP methods and how they connect to two important concepts in REST. So I mentioned the different HTTP methods without a lot of explanation. So really quickly, with HTTP, when you send out a request, there is the part is the URL, and you also have, in addition to a URL, you have an HTTP method. So the URL identifies the server, and with the path you can identify the a certain resource that you want to work on, and with the method you're saying what actually you want to do with this resource. And the four types of most commonly used methods are get, post, put, and delete. And these are all used for different purposes. For example, get is usually used when you want to get data from the server about something, and that is why it is used by default when you open an address in the browser. By default, it sends out a GET request because the goal is to get data. So we are not with GET, do not make any changes to the data on the application, but we just want to read data out. With POST and PUT, you can usually send new data to the server or updated data to the server. Uh, and delete, yeah, the name says it also, it's used to delete data on the server. And now, if you think about the kind of operations that we want to do with REST, these are exactly mapped to the type of operations that we want to do with REST. So when we do an operations on a resource, the most basic operations that one would like to do is to read or to get information for a resource, create a new resource, update a resource, or delete a resource. And the idea of REST actually is to use the existing HTTP methods to define what type of operation we are going to do on that resource. And this is the mapping that you should always have in mind. By the way, CRUD is short for create, read, update, and delete, which are very common operations that almost every web application has, regardless of the programming language. And the idea is that when a user wants to create a resource, he sends a POST request. When the user wants to get the information for a resource or reads information, he sends a GET request. When the user wants to update certain resource, then he sends a PUT request. And if he wants to delete a resource, he sends a delete request. The goal here for REST is, again, to make sure that all the web applications in the world follow kind of the same structure, so that all of the applications, whenever you send a POST request, you can expect them that they create a new resource. It would make very little sense if, for example, you send a POST request and as a result the server deletes something. Or if it's even worse, if you send a GET request and then the server changes some data, because the idea with the GET is that you only are reading data and you're not changing anything. So it helps a lot when all the websites, all the web applications in the world work kind of in a similar way. That makes it very easy to build such applications in a manageable way. Um, Let me check what kind of examples we have here for this week. Plan. Okay, so I found this example from the README. It says understanding CRUD using Facebook as the case study. So this is looking just as the operations as they are without talking about HTTP or how they're actually executed. So it mentions that the CRUD stands for create, read, update, and delete. And create is used, for example, to create a user or create an account. And this happens when you try to sign up to Facebook for the first time. Then you're asked to create an account, right? And this is what the form would look like. So you need to fill in some information before we can create the resource, which is the basic information that's needed for the resource to be created. The way how this works in the background is that once you fill in all the information and you click a button, there will be a post request sent to the server with all the information that you have put in, and then the server will take care of creating this account. What the server will also do is check that all the data here is correct and everything looks good. For example, if you here it says mobile number or email address, and it says re-enter mobile number. So the server will check to make sure that these two are the same data as a safety precaution. Reading. Reading is arguably one of the most important operations, and there is almost no reason to have a resource if you do not have a read operation on it. So you might have resources where maybe some of the operations are missing, but usually read you will always have, because that is the basic operation that you can do with the resource, get data on the resource. So for example, after you create a post, you can go to that post and just read what it says. Now when you're clicking on a post in the browser, so then a GET request is sent to the server, which gets the data, the text that is contained in that post. Update is also a common one, a common operation, but not all resources have an update operation, and not all the information in a post can always be updated. And I'm sure you have come across this. Sometimes it's just not possible to change a certain information for a resource. For example, I believe it's not possible to rename a branch. I think that's not possible, or to rename a pull request, or things like that. So in a lot of some cases, update does not let you change all the information. For example, when you have a post, then you can click on edit post, and then you're allowed to change, for example, the main text of the post. When you click save, then a request is sent to the server, probably a put request with the new data that you want to change. And finally delete, which means what it says, basically delete. And on Facebook you can usually delete the resource that you have created manually, such as posts, events, and so forth. Now, depending on the type of application that you're building, sometimes deleting is a quite dangerous operation. So there is all kinds of security around deleting, and it's usually not allowed to delete everything. And when it's allowed to delete, there is usually a confirmation process, so that when you want to delete, before the delete request is sent, there is usually some kind of confirmation behind that. Yeah. So again, here it says CRUD is a very important concept in programming, as there is no way to create a content-based application without using CRUD operations. So CRUD operations are really key to every web application. So there is no other exercise for now. I will end this part here, and then in the next part we'll bring this back to rest and talk in more details, more concrete details.